anything ethnic Japanese.
We started out with being looked upon as pro-Japan, looked upon as, third-class citizens.
Japanese Americans and Japanese nationals living in the United States were soon declared to be enemy alien.
Executive Order 9066 incarcerated 120,000 ethnic Japanese, over one-half of them being U.S. citizens. In Hawaii, there were 1,432 Japanese Americans already in the Hawaii Territorial Guard. The military government packed them up, sent them to Camp McCoy, Wisconsin for training, and then they were deployed to Italy for combat. That unit was called the 100th Battalion, separate.
They were really the pioneers. They were fighting not only a vicious enemy, but also fighting perception that Japanese Americans weren't loyal Americans. They wouldn't fight bravely. The 100th Infantry Battalion became known as the Purple Heart Battalion because they fought so valiantly and they suffered so many casualties.
Because their combat training and combat record were exemplary, and because of the need for manpower, wise men in Washington decided to form the 442nd Regimental Combat Team, made up of volunteers, 2,500 from Hawaii and 1,500 from the mainland U.S. They volunteered from behind barbed wire camps. And by then, the 100 had lost so many men that the 100 in essence became the 1st Battalion of the 442nd Regimental Combat Team.
442nd then demonstrated in combat in Italy that they were about as tough a fighting force as we had anywhere in the armed forces. They, person for person, got more distinctions of every kind than any other group of their size.
And I think it should be noted that the United States Army, in picking the 10 most important events and battles, picked one of the battles the 442 got involved in. Battle of the Lost Battalion.
They were ordered to rescue a trapped battalion of the Texas Division.
When we realized what this was all about, some of us, in chit-chatting among ourselves, said, this is what we have been waiting for.
Very intensive fighting. Some units suffered very heavy casualties. One company had 16 men standing, and another had 8 men standing. Despite all that casualties, we did what we had to do to save our men.
But that sacrifice for many of us was worth it, because America took notice.
The MIS, they played an absolutely vital function. First, they served in combat roles right next to combat teams. But second, they used their linguistic skills to gather intelligence, to do translations, to do interrogations, and many times they were at equal if not greater risk because they could be confused with enemy troops and they could take fire from all sides.
They didn't trust us at first. I volunteered as a private in the Army. That was 1942. By the time Japan surrendered in August 1945, they gave about 50 of us a field commission as second lieutenants. So that means that they finally trusted us to become officers.
These were some extraordinarily brave people playing an absolutely vital role, and their contribution is probably least known of the 3 groups, because for a long time their work was classified and kept secret.
The Japanese American soldiers fought in Pacific side and European side to prove their loyalty and also their capability.
Congressional Gold Medal is Congress's highest honor. It's the highest medal that we can award anyone. And there's a very illustrious small group that has received it since the country's founding. George Washington was an early recipient, people like Neil Armstrong.
Thomas Edison, or Martin Luther King, all of them played a role in our history to shape our country in a good way, in a better way.
I would say this is a very long overdue honor. It's a story of love of country, of sacrifice, and it's really a remarkable American story.
It was truly a recognition. I had hoped that those who were killed in action and those veterans who survived the war but who had since passed away could have witnessed.
They're just a profound illustration of commitment, of bravery, courage under fire, sacrifice, love of country during World War II to fight this kind of prejudice at home and to have family members being locked up in camps and losing their livelihoods, to be willing to fight and die for that country. It takes a very special person. And it's hard to find a definition of patriotism greater than what they exhibited.